What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome to Not Your Status Quo. Today, we are going to review the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And just so you know, there will be spoilers for Zack Snyder's Justice League in this video. So if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. We'll wait. It's going to be a while, but we'll wait. Come back and finish the video. Where do we start? There's so many things we can go. We have the good, we have the bad, we have a 4-hour movie. I really think sitting down to watch this, the first thing I thought when this was all over was he needed 4 hours to really tell this story. I can see why there were some Warner Brother executives who said this movie was unwatchable when he cut this down to like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It would have made zero sense. You really need it, well, most of that time. We'll get into how much slow-mo was used in some scenes that really probably didn't need to be in a little bit. But overall, I liked this movie more than I thought I would. There was some really good, some of the good. The fight scenes were pretty amazing. I mean, I really enjoyed the Wonder Woman versus Steppenwolf was a fantastic fight scene with the whole Justice League kind of joining in at times. But then, I was watching the Wonder Woman scene in like the bank or the school, whatever that was, and it kept going from slow-mo to fast action to slow-mo to fast action. I was kind of annoyed. I mean, they really could have played that in fast motion and it would have really played really well. I'm not sure what the love of slow-mo is. It reminded me of when my daughter found out that she had slow-mo on her camera on her phone, and soon every video was slow-mo. And I think that's kind of what happened here. I think it was overdone and took away from its effect a little bit. But overall, the fight scenes were pretty fantastic.
I agree 100%. I mean, the Wonder Woman scene, when they introduced every character with a slow motion arc or some superhero walk or something, totally unnecessary. And I was telling the guys earlier, like the way they have Flash in these movies, you can never tell that he's actually moving fast, as you would see in a MCU movie with Quicksilver. They have scenes running fast. With the Flash, it always, like, if he is running, it's just some slow motion thing where he's like this and all he's got his hands above his head for some reason. And you never actually see him go. There's just like a bolt of lightning and then he disappears. I don't like that. A few other things like at the beginning of the movie where it's the cliche. I know that, they got to do it. I don't know why they got to do it. Where Batman meets Aquaman in that town up north. I say probably Arctic Circle, and he rejects him out of hand, but they both know who each other are and they both talk about their secret identities with people around. It doesn't make sense. That I thought maybe that was part of the Whedon cut, but no, it was the Snyder cut. So I don't know what else. Oh, one more thing about that scene when Aquaman rejects him, goes back into the water, and Bruce is just staring, and he decides to leave, and that girl just starts singing, and I'm thinking, okay, if she's going to sing some song in like 5-10 seconds, we get the point. She went on, I swear it had to be for like 2 minutes. It was really creepy.
Yeah, no joke. I was thinking the same exact thing, Dave. That was super friggin' creepy. I don't understand. The only thing that I could think of, again, this is kind of going back even further in the beginning when we were told that this was Zack Snyder's artistic vision, hence the unusual, ratio for the movie. So way to start off on a pretentious level, whatever, you're an artist, okay, I'll still watch the movie. But yeah, when you've got these weird ass, I assume sirens or something, I think that's what he was going for, Aquaman, water, maybe I'm reading too deep into it, and you got this creepy girl and the other women, there was like more than one singing, and it went on for so long, and I'm thinking, that probably should have stayed on the cutting room floor. Like there were certain scenes that just didn't need to be in this movie to make it a full coherent story. Keith was right. There were certain things that were required to make this movie watchable. That wasn't one of them.
Yeah, that was one of them. And also, the scene with Lois getting her latte just seemed way too long to really, come across with what they're trying to get across. She lost Clark, she's at a very dark place. She's sad. She's having trouble, dealing. That could have been done in a lot shorter scene where, on the opposite side of that, we were talking kind of before this, the Amazon fight scene against Steppenwolf was really a lot better because it had more time. In the end, Steppenwolf just didn't starch all the Amazons and take off. There was a whole, cut and, fight and chase and everything. And that was helped by this, where, so much, I think they bowed to Snyder when a lot more could have been cut out and made this maybe 3.5 hour movie. And it would have been even better, possibly. One of the things that was really good about this film too is I liked the black suit Superman. I'm always about what was in the comics. And the thing I was worried about is he was just going to have the black suit to have the black suit because it's cool. It's, the Snyder version of Superman. But they did have him, charge up in the sun, because if you remember in the Death of Superman storyline, the black suit helped get solar energy to Superman quicker because he was really weak. And they did have him show up and, get in front of the sun and take that. And, I'm kind of shocked they didn't talk about it more, because one of the other problems with this film is they kept talking about the same thing ad nauseum. I mean, we heard about the Unity and the mother boxes 3 or 4 times, and they really could have cut some of that out and once again kind of taken away from the 4-hour scene. We didn't need to hear if the Unity synchronized, the world is going to be destroyed. We saw it on the wall. We saw them talking about it. They explained it ad nauseum, and it was just kind of overkill.
So I had a question about that for you, Keith, since you've got a little bit more knowledge about the comics than I tend to. What is the deal with the mother boxes in the DCEU? From my limited knowledge, a lot of my knowledge does come from the DC animated universe. Unfortunately, that was pretty much my main introduction, save for a couple of comics. I do have my favorite DC comics. As you can see, I do have a love for some of the comics. I just didn't read as much into them. But from my understanding, the mother boxes were more of a living computer, but they were kind of used mostly as a transport device. They weren't this sort of world-ending thing. Is that the case in the comics? Did I miss something in this movie?
No, Doug, you're absolutely right. In the comics, they are not. They're a living computer, and they're not evil or good. They weren't joined together to destroy planets. Now, you could use their power to do it, but it wasn't anything like this movie. So I really think, like Cyborg is kind of that mother box. He's a living computer, and he does these sort of things. It just, the whole fact that the 3 joined together to destroy the planet just kind of took away from Darkseid's power.
Yeah,
I think
I totally agree. You're dead on with that. They didn't need that to make Darkseid more intimidating. They didn't need that to make Steppenwolf more intimidating. They have their own backstories that would have made them just as scary without needing to search for mystical objects.
And while we're talking about Darkseid, he getting washed by Ares like that in that flashback scene just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Darkseid is like this, uber god. He is like one of the most powerful beings in the universe, and I don't think him getting washed like that, with the axe, and he seemed very weak at that point. Now I'm sure they can try to play it off like, oh, he built up power after that, but he was always a power like that. The scene would have went a lot better if they barely fought him off and got him off Earth, instead of him just getting wasted and getting pulled off by parademons. I thought that was just very, very questionable way to have that handled.
You know who actually did Darkseid's story some justice? The animated Justice League movie. Like, that's pretty bad. We say that I'm sure those of you who have watched some of our other videos, and if you've visited our YouTube channel before, you know that we have said that multiple times, where we think the DC animated universe tends to do justice to the characters, whereas the movies really don't, the live action movies. If you go back and you watch the Justice League animated movie that came out a couple of years back, they told almost the same story. Where you've got, Cyborg and Superman and Batman and Flash coming together. They also had Green Lantern too, but beggars can't be choosers. But they had them coming together to fight Darkseid. And I think they did that story much better than this 4-hour movie did.
No, Doug, you're absolutely right. I think they showed Darkseid's power in that a lot better than it was displayed here. It's funny you mentioned Green Lantern, because we did find out in an interview. We didn't interview him, but in an interview with Zack Snyder, he did say he wanted to use John Stewart Green Lantern in this movie, and WB said, nope, you're not using him. So that's why Martian Manhunter was in this, which unfortunately, his scene with Lois and then his scene at the end, like, hey, you guys just saved the planet. Now I kind of want to join you. Just seemed, honestly, we talk about it all the time. This was fan service done wrong. You threw in a character with no real need to be in it. And I just thought it was a waste of time and a waste of, 2 minutes that he had on screen time. It would have been better if he had played a prominent part in the end scene. He shows up at the end, hey, you're going to need my help. That would have made more sense than him showing up at Batman's house saying, I want to join the team now, guys. And honestly, I loved the team shot that came in too when they were in that final battle. I'm going to, piss off a lot of Snyder fans, but, it was stolen from Age of Ultron and Josh Whedon. So, but it played off really well. I loved how the camera, that was the one time when the slow-mo kind of kicked in that I actually really enjoyed it. And I thought it was really well done. Now, for some of the bad. The 4:3 aspect ratio, I mean, I understand maybe he was trying to show a more personal, thing with some of these characters. It was more personal. There was one person on screen at a time. But man, it really didn't play off well in some of the fight scenes. We really needed to see some of those amazing scenes in a more wide aspect ratio to really understand how huge it was.
He wants to make this epic movie, and he wants to, have his vision realized. And it's like, why take a step backwards in technology with a 4:3 ratio? I mean, you could watch this on one of my old 27-inch TVs.
I was thinking the same thing. Dave actually told us, like, he kind of started watching it first, and he told us in our chat, he goes, hey, just a heads up, so you guys aren't surprised by this. And sure enough, what do I see when I first start up Zack Snyder's Justice League is this message: to protect Zack Snyder's artistic vision. And I'm just like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing. We're going to go with this pretentious nonsense. All right, cool, bring it on. I'll watch the movie, but come on, guy.
I thought the music was overly dramatic and operatic every time there was a flashback for the character, for each, I guess, Justice League character. It's just like too much. After it went through the first two characters, I was like, all right, that's cool. But then they had like 3 more to go to introduce into the movie, and every time it was some operatic slow motion crap.
It took me out of the Flash. You're totally spot on. When they were introducing him, his backstory totally took me out of it. Wrong choice of music.
In superhero movies, when they, like, let's take Captain America, for example, Civil War. When they're slamming people up against concrete, do you see blood, flying out of these people? Or does it imply, hey, they're dead or they're hurt? We don't have to have like blood and gore in these movies. Kids are going to be watching this too. That's just how I feel about it. I thought it was unnecessary. I like the action, but I didn't think that we needed blood splatter everywhere.
Dave, the one scene where that really bugged me the most was in the final battle against Steppenwolf. Superman is using his heat vision to cut off Steppenwolf's horn. Did he really need to do that? I mean, he needed to subdue him, kill him, or knock him out. He did not need to cut off his horn. That's almost like, torture for this character. And that is just not Superman. And then Wonder Woman cutting off his head as he's going, through the boom tube back to Apocalypse. I mean, I didn't like it. I know that there was Zack wanted to have Wonder Woman beheading people in the original Wonder Woman movie. And thank God Patty Jenkins said that's out of character. And I just thought it was out of character. Out of character in this movie too. And it just really took me out of that scene. As much as I enjoyed the action, that brought me back out. And I'm just like, oh man, between the song choices being bad and some of the choices he had for the characters in the fight, it was just really hard to get into this movie and become completely, enveloped by it. I just couldn't do it. So many things took me out of it. And I was just like, damn, that is such a bad choice.
But Keith, out of whose version of those characters? Let's think about who we're talking about here. We've gone on about this in some of our other, reviews of some of these past movies. Whose version of Superman? Like, that is totally the DCEU's version of Superman. He would definitely do that stuff. That is totally the DC, well, maybe not quite the DCEU's version of Wonder Woman. It is now, thank you, Zach. But yeah, that is definitely in the realm of these characters. And now I'm actually kind of glad that he didn't put my favorite version of the Green Lantern in his movie, because he probably would have had him coming down shooting machine guns out of his ring.
Doug, you're absolutely right. I am glad he didn't get John Stewart, because as a fellow Marine, Semper Fi John Stewart, he would have trashed that character. And I'm just happy that we'll see him at some point, but it will not be Zack Snyder's version of it.
Another thing I wanted to mention was Lex Luthor, barely in the movie. Thank God. Thank you for that. And they did show that this team can fight and hold their own without Superman. But when he finally showed up, let's face it, it was over.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. And that's kind of what I liked about this movie. They really showed the characters, they're fully powered. They had good plans going in. They knew what they were doing. Batman had a good plan, even though his love of guns kind of took me out of the movie at times too. They had good plans going in and they had it. They didn't necessarily need Superman. So once he showed up, just like you said, Dave, it was over and that was the end. And I thought that was great.
Can we talk about the post-credit scenes that weren't post-credit scene? Well, the one post-credit scene, the Batman nightmare scene, completely unnecessary. I don't know why. I could see maybe Zack throwing it in there.
You mean the scene that was originally supposed to be in Batman v Superman and then it was cut out at the last minute?
That's the one.
Yes.
And I'm thinking he just did that to create a buzz so that maybe he can create Justice League 2 and 3. But right now there's no plans for that. So that was not, I didn't think that was necessary at all.
No, they could have definitely done without it. I mean, the whole Joker scene with the, well, I have a truce and, Lois is the key. You watched her die. And if you've read what the plan was for Justice League 2 and 3 and how Lois's kid was actually Bruce Wayne's and that was going to be how the whole thing, finished up. It just is absolutely silly. And the whole nightmare scene, the post-credit scene was just unneeded and honestly didn't add anything to the
I don't know. Overall, my review on this movie, I'm surprised that I liked it as much as I did. I did not expect to because I've always seen Zack Snyder movies as like basically what we've described in here. But these are the things that were negative about the movie. After about the first hour, I just sat back and it's like all the other stuff was behind us. And yes, there were those annoying scenes where they had the slow motion and the pretentious music, but I kind of got into it a little bit more as it went on. Overall, out of 10, I would give this movie a 6. I was really surprised that I liked it that much.
Like Dave, I really enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I did. And I honestly think this is Zack Snyder's best DC film. That's not saying too much if you know what I feel about Man of Steel, Batman v Superman. But while it was still disappointing, the good was pretty good. And the bad, unfortunately, really distracted me from my overall enjoyment of it. I really, between the 4:3 aspect ratio through the whole thing, the song choices, Martian Manhunter, torture Superman to go along with his buddy torture Batman and Wonder Woman cutting off the head, really kind of brought me out of my joy of this. And I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 10.
I'm going to be a little bit different from Keith and Dave. I didn't hate the movie, but I also didn't like it. To me, I guess the closest that I can give, if I'm going to, give it any sort of statement, is I was indifferent. I feel like I shouldn't have had to watch this movie. Now, that's nothing against Zack Snyder. I've got plenty to say about that, but I shouldn't have had to watch this movie. I shouldn't have had to spend 4 hours watching what I guess should have been in theaters. Or to be completely honest, this movie shouldn't have been in theaters. The other version of Justice League shouldn't have been in theaters. There should have been a completely different Justice League, but I think you guys are going to have to wait for us to do a back to the editing room on the way that a real Justice League movie should have been played out. This was not it. There were some improvements. I can see why the extra time was needed. I will agree with Keith on that regard, that in order for Zack Snyder to tell the type of story that he wanted to tell and to have his artistic vision go ahead and boo me now, Zack Snyder stands, but I guess he needed the time. But as we said in this review, there was a lot that took us out of it. So I'm with the guys on there. There was a lot of unnecessary scenes, like what we said, that should have remained on the cutting room floor. Didn't need to be there. I didn't need 2 introductions to Aquaman. I didn't need to see the creepy woman singing as Batman stares at them. I didn't need to hear the weird operatic music that they chose for the introduction to some of these characters. I definitely did not need to be told how all of Cyborg's powers work. Show me, Zach. Don't tell me. I would have figured it out if you would have put it in the movie better. I didn't need to see some of the unnecessary scenes like Martian Manhunter. I didn't need to see Zach's version of these characters like shoot 'em up Batman and psychopath Superman. I get that that's this movie world's universe, this universe's version of these characters. Not my thing. So as a rating, I am going to give it a 4 out of 10, and I think that's being generous. Yes, I know what you're going to say. I know that technically this is a higher rating than what I gave Wonder Woman 84. I was wrong on that rating. So I will give a retroactive rating, a 2 out of 10 for Wonder Woman 84. So there you go. This was better than Wonder Woman 84, but that's kind of a low bar.
That's what we thought of Justice League, but what did you guys think? Was the bad bad and the good good, or are we way off? Let us know down in the comments below, and we'll see you next time at Not Your Status Quo.